let's go through all of the teams. Let's go and start. We've got new teams that are on the grid. We've got new drivers on the grid. We've got new driver pairings that are on the grid. And let's give it our sort of two-race summary of each of the teams. And let's start off with Cadillac. They're the brand new team coming into Formula One for the first time. They've got Ferrari power in there. They've got Bottas and Perez, who I cannot believe crashed into each other. I mean, what are you doing? I mean, come on. But yes, they finished the race yesterday, albeit very, very far behind. And they're going to have a very, very difficult year.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm so happy you brought up the crash because I was like, oh, you're first from the back. So why are we racing so aggressively? Because in my mind, the only goal of Cadillac right now is really just to finish a race, to see if they have a reliable enough car to be able to at least do that. And I think that they've got the good drivers. We know that Bottas and Perez are great drivers. They've both won championship titles with their old teams, Red Bull and obviously Mercedes. And then, of course, they've won Grand Prix, multiple. So we've got the drivers. We don't have the machinery. But we do have the experience needed to be able to improve and be better. Because I think a lot of the time coming in as a new team, you're always on the back foot automatically. But they've got the skills that they need to be able to do well. So I'm curious to see how well they will fare because I would love them to be more competitive. I mean, we are only on race 2, but I think that let's check halfway through the season to see if there has been any improvement because right now it seems like they're in their own little group. Well, besides Aston Martin, but yeah, that is a story for another day.
Well, no, we'll get to them. So Cadillac, the one thing that I'm just a little bit concerned about Cadillac, and yes, they're a brand new team. I understand that new car, etc., but they do have the Ferrari power, and we're seeing that the Ferrari power is working very well in the Ferrari, and it's also working very well in the Haas. So somewhere along the line, theirs is very much a geometry of their car that seems to be a bit of an issue for Cadillac at the moment. The team that I was just blown away in the first race, Audi, coming in also brand new. Bortoleto scoring points on their debut, which was fantastic. Hulkenberg just out of the points yesterday. Gabby unfortunately couldn't start the race, but well done to Audi with their own power unit as well. Yes, always in new regulations, the first couple of races are the chance for you to get the points. Thereafterwards, things sort of balance themselves out. But I think a tremendous debut from this team, and kudos to them for really showing what. Of course, we know Audi Motorsport is unbelievable, but great to see them in Formula One and terrific for Gabriel Bortoleto. I think this kid is also showing the class that we've always known he's had.
Yeah, he's the one driver that I have who I'm hoping would have a surprise podium this year because I just feel like there's something in his driving ability and his maturity that is just years beyond what he already has proven. So I think he's one of the drivers to really watch this season. I also think, he had a hydraulics issue, also one of the 4 drivers who didn't start yesterday. But I think that this is also one of those things where your leader does reflect your work ethic a lot of the time. And I think they're in such good hands with Jonathan Wheatley, who's their team principal and CEO. And I think with what he's been able to do just in the last year and a bit, and now into Audi's transition phase, has been really remarkable to watch. So I think that they really are on the up and up. The fact that they have already scored points is great. They just have to be more consistent, and they've got the drivers. It's just now about making sure that they're able to really compete with the midfield teams.
Yeah. Now, there's 2 problem children that we have in the world of Formula One at the moment. And that's not the FIA and it's not the regulations, it's some of the teams. And it goes without saying, the biggest disappointment and an incredibly worrying time has got to be Aston Martin and Honda together. Just if you're unaware, there have been accusations thrown around by whether it's from Aston Martin or whether it's from Honda, and Aston Martin believed they were getting X from Honda and they haven't received this from Honda. Honda saying Aston Martin changed the geometry of the car, etc., etc., etc. Let's put all of that aside. There's two things we have to understand. Adrian Newey is well known for trying to tighten up any design that he has as possible, which he did with Red Bull very, very successfully. And he makes that engine as tiny as it can be. Okay. Whether Honda got it horribly wrong or didn't get the correct brief, or Adrian Newey changed things after the engine was delivered, we don't know. And we'll probably never, ever know. However, this is a massively problematic time for Aston Martin and for their engine supplier. And I don't see this getting fixed in a short period of time. I think they are going to struggle the whole of the season. I do not see a remedy for this anytime soon.
There was a comment that Fernando Alonso made a couple of weeks ago where he said even the chef could, drive their car because the way that it's operated, besides how badly it vibrates, he said that the mechanics of the car itself just doesn't make sense, but also at the same time with the regulations it does feel like a game. So there's two different issues that we're dealing with, because Fernando Alonso is saying, I couldn't feel my hands and I started to not feel my feet yesterday in the race is highly problematic because it's dangerous. There's a level of danger that you're putting your drivers in that it makes me worry about the fact that, like, okay, cool. So we saw in the first race, they were like, oh, we don't even know if we're going to race. They were on the fence about it. And then now in China as well, Lance Stroll out, Fernando Alonso out. It does make you question, like, going into Japan in a couple of weeks, Honda's home basically. I mean, from last year when Max won their final race with Honda, it's kind of horrible to go from that. It's like the worst nightmare possible to go from that to where we are now, because parts are still missing from the Aston Martin team. There are a lot of things that are fundamentally wrong, and it feels like everyone is just, it's your fault. It's your fault. It's like watching a divorce go horribly wrong in public and nobody's taking accountability for the actions. The funniest thing for me is that they are probably the team that has the most money. And although there is obviously a cost cap and everything,
all of that, yeah.
I find it highly ironic that this is what's happening to a team that we were so looking forward to seeing being revived and coming to the forefront of these new regulations.
Yeah, something has gone horribly wrong in the background that we aren't that privy to. Now, my next problem child, and I think most people who know me would sit there and say, oh, Sasha, you and James Viles, you must be like what do they call brothers or whatever, bromance.
There's a bromance going on, yes,
or whatever. And I was so excited for Williams. I thought, geez, they're really, really coming up. They're doing something fantastic. Yes, Sainz got points yesterday, and I think they were very, very relieved. But what has gone wrong? They've got a Mercedes power, and we're going to talk about that when we get to the top. So let's talk about the Mercedes power unit. But they've got Mercedes power, and all of a sudden this car is apparently 30 or 28 kilograms overweight. What has Williams done? I cannot understand why all of a sudden it's gone so horribly wrong after this incredible sort of development over the last couple of years. Doesn't make any sense.
Do you know, I wish I was a fly on the wall when they discovered it was so overweight, and the fact that they had to miss the shakedown week because of it was mind-blowing, because they were off on such a great start. The momentum was there. They were the best of the race coming into the season, and there were a lot of expectations, like you said, because they also were powered by Mercedes. You would think that they would have almost an advantage, but it feels like when even Sainz spoke yesterday, there was no pure happiness in his voice. It was more like, okay, cool. So there is something in this car, but it's not enough. We can't become complacent and be content with what we have, because it's not even what it was last year. And I think that with them coming out, and even James Vowles like, I'm actually a bit worried, it doesn't put a lot of faith in us fans who has been so excited to see Williams come up because that's been their trajectory for the last couple of years. Now all of a sudden it's like even the drivers are waiting with bated breath. I mean, Alex Albon, also one of the 4 who didn't start yesterday because of issues with the car. He said it wasn't just suspension, there were lots of different issues and they couldn't even pinpoint some of them. So it kind of feels like they're also one of those teams that are having to go back to the drawing board and figure out a lot of different things. Also, maybe the geometry of their car has been so wrong. And I want to be optimistic because I always feel like there are going to be developments coming. But as it stands right now, look, 2 points is better than none. But I think with where they were, they have a lot of work to do.
I mean, who would have thought that after the seasons that we've watched in the last 2 years, that we'd be after 2 races in this brand new era of Formula One, that Alpine would be ahead of Williams with the same engine, Okay, so we're going to talk about that engine a little bit later. But fantastic job from Gasly. We know, is just, you give him the right car, he's right up there. But also, I'm so chuffed for Franco Colapinto, because gave him a bit of a hard time last year, and I thought, you know what, if this kid doesn't, start performing, they will toss him out. And he drove a spectacular race yesterday in China. And as I say, and also kudos to Ocon for saying, listen, my fault. And I'm glad he didn't take him out of the race. But Colapinto was up there to finish right up with Gasly, but got into the points. And I think he'll feel like a really, really happy guy. I think Briatore and the whole Alpine structure at the moment, even though there's talk of Horner buying in or Mercedes buying in or whatever, will be very, very happy with the start to their season.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would absolutely love to be Briatore right now because he's been so stressed, and I feel like this is the first time he can be like, okay, cool. Something is paying off. It's slow and steady here, but there's at least some progress. And that's really all you want as a Formula One team, especially from the years that you've had before. You want some improvements. And I think that, again, one of those teams that have always had the drivers and the capability to do well, but haven't made the correct choices in their, powers of the engines, the power units. They are finally at a place where I feel like, okay, cool, we can be a bit more competitive. I mean, I will also say, like, in previous years, they didn't also get the podiums that they did out of nowhere, out of luck. It was also out of the fact that they did at some races have really good pace. And I think the fact that both at this race and at the last race, the top speeds were from Alpine. And that should be an indicator of the fact that there's a lot of power behind this car, and they could do really well if they continue on this trajectory.
Racing Bulls and Red Bull have got the same amount of points after 2 races in the world of Formula One. Max Verstappen clearly can't get off the line very, very well when it comes to the starts. He drove a brilliant race in Australia, coming from the back to finish in 6th position, and yesterday, unfortunately, a DNF. But Hadjar's been the great, I won't say the surprise, but it's just been fantastic to see how close he actually is to Max Verstappen. Even though Max completely hates the car, completely hates everything about it, Max is still a 4 times champion and actually is very circumspect. Even though he's rather negative, on the other side, he is saying, as a team, we know that we can do this, and we've just got to now get down and go for it. And that's what I love about Max. He might be very vocal against the specific formula that they are racing, but on the other side, he knows and firmly believes in his team. But Racing Bulls, Lindblad, what a debut, and what another great race yesterday. And Lawson, as you mentioned right at the beginning, superb, wonderful combination of drivers, and let's hope they manage to go forward with this, because Racing Bulls really, really look decent.
I just want to also say a big compliment to Red Bull because I think they got the drivers' combination correct. I know some people say it might be too early to tell, but I think the driving style of Max and Hadjar is quite complementary of one another, the same as how I feel with Lawson and Lindblad. I think that those two combos work really well together. And I think one of the things I said on social media that I actually got lambasted on, Sash, is the fact that I said Hadjar is on the same level of Max in terms of filling the gap where your partner cannot. it's the first time in so many years where if Max Verstappen doesn't score points, Hadjar scores points. If Hadjar doesn't score points, Max Verstappen does. That give and take is so important as teammates, especially when you're competing against teams like Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari. It's really, really important to have that synergy. So I think with where they are, it's going to be a tight battle anyway. But again, with developments coming up, I think that we're really in for a treat because all four of those drivers are really, really good. I just think it's a matter of that car just needs a little bit of fixing. Because Lawson also had, where Max had terrible starts, Lawson had a really good start. So what is the difference between that? Because Lawson went from 14th to 7th twice, and Max just went down the order. I mean, even my dogs agree with me at the moment. They're just like, yes, that's correct. So I just think we need to figure out that start because it can't be so significantly different because Hadjar has also had a really good start in his Red Bull. So is it just Max? Because it feels like the other three have had good starts at some point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, he is Max Verstappen, and I'm sure they'll figure out exactly how to get things better. Um, but at present, there's definitely a little bit of discord and discomfort within the Red Bull team.